Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, it's great. I spent much of this morning thinking to myself, how different are Indiana and Northwestern as programs really? Really, because we watched Ohio State play one of those teams on Saturday and have a 44-7 halftime lead. And we watched Michigan play one of the other of those teams and have a 10-7 halftime lead. And I thought, it's not an exact comparison, but they have some of the same issues in some of the same places. And we saw two very different games on Saturday.
Well, but Tom, it's not how you start, it's how you finished. Ohio State finished by scoring 10 points in the second half. Michigan finished by scoring 23 points in the second half against Northwestern. So would you like to apologize?
I didn't say that one was better than the other. I just said they were very different games. That's all.
Then I apologize. Yes.
as well you should.
Today is our Michigan Monday edition of the Buckeye Weekly Podcast, recapping what we saw, what we thought, and what we thought we saw from Michigan's 33-7 win over Northwestern in Ann Arbor. It was just about exactly the game that we both expected. Michigan starts out slowly. Eventually, everything goes terribly wrong for the opponent, and then Michigan comes away with a comfortable win, just doing what they have done all season long. Run the ball a lot, throw it a little, and when I say throw it a little, I mean, I actually threw the ball 27, well, Cade McNamara threw the ball 27 times for 20 completions, but the ball doesn't actually go very far. This is something I do with McNamara every now and again, and I've done it in the past with other Michigan quarterbacks. How far down the field is Michigan throwing the ball? The total distance of Cade McNamara's 20 completions, Tom, in the air, traveled a total of 20 yards before being caught. That is, Tom, let me do the math on this. 20 yards downfield on 20 completions. Let me turn the page on this one. Yes, 1 yard per completion down the field. It's not a lot of airtime, Tom.
That's, the deep game there is not exactly what you'd be looking for. We were talking before we hit record, and watching the game, once you got through, I was kind of watching a condensed version of the game. Once you got 2 quarters in or so, every time he dropped back and looked like he was going to heave it downfield, it was like, oh, okay, here comes an incompletion. Like you could just tell. And it wasn't like there were a bunch of just barely missed. Like the best deep ball he threw was one where he hit a Northwestern receiver almost on right in the hands on a perfect post route. Unfortunately, the Northwestern player was playing defense and the Michigan receiver had to break it up. Like that was about the best deep ball he threw. It was just like, well, that was the wrong guy. But I mean, you gave someone a chance to catch it downfield. So that was good. That was encouraging.
That's a plus. He threw the ball 10 yards or more downfield 6 times, completed 1 pass of exactly, I think it went 11 yards downfield. Every time he throws deep, you don't know where it's going to go. Sometimes he can connect, but these aren't 50-50 balls. They're not completing 50% of them. They're not giving their receivers, he's not giving his receivers a 50-50 opportunity because the passes aren't that close. And whether they have to come back to them or they're overthrown or they're in double coverage, at that point, when it's in double coverage, it's a 33 ball. It's a 33 ball, that sort of thing, or a 33-67 if you want to get technical. But the downfield passing needs to improve. And sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. It always needs to be there. The threat always needs to be there. And right now, the threat is like, well, we'll risk it. Let's just stop the run and we'll risk it. And of course, Northwestern wasn't able to stop the run. Michigan ran the ball for 294 yards. On 54 attempts, 5.4 yards per carry, just controlled the game as you expected. And it wasn't easy, until the third quarter when, like I said, all heck broke loose and you had a block punt. And you had, I think, Michigan's average starting field position throughout the game goes from and I could get you the exact numbers, but it's 19 in the first quarter, then 32 in the second quarter, and then it's like the 44 in the third quarter, and then it's like Northwestern territory in the fourth quarter, and everything just gets easier and easier for the here you go. It's it's fine. The domination, you wear Northwestern out, and there's not a lot there to. It's not like Northwestern has a lot of energy to expend anyway.
Well, and this is a team that you can do that to. Michigan's got some teams coming up that they can't do that to. And I'm going to be real interested to see if they try and do that to Michigan State next week, because Northwestern, I mean, when I say Northwestern and Indiana are kind of similar, it's like you could give them 17 quarters and they might crack 20 points. Like it's just the offenses just aren't there. And, some of that is good defense. And some of that is like, well, Michigan's defense hasn't been playing Northwestern all the other weeks when Northwestern couldn't score this year. So how much credit do you really want to give them? And same thing for Ohio State and Indiana. Like, is the Ohio State defense really totally dominatingly fixed? Like, well, it's been Rutgers, Maryland, and Indiana, and none of them are great. So you can give them some credit, but not all of it. I think, to me, the big picture thing that strikes me about this year's Michigan team is Jim Harbaugh knows he can't go 7-5 this year. And the good news is he's very unlikely to go 7-5 at this point. So that's good. But in in seeking to not go 7-5 this year and trying, just kind of like grind out games with superior talent against teams like Northwestern, they've sort of set aside some of the bigger goals, the play a competitive game against Ohio State. That seems like, there's a little bit of a choice here between can we win 9 games and just focus on just the things that are the best right now, or take a longer term, a longer horizon view here. I think JJ McCarthy should be playing because Cade McNamara is just not that good a quarterback. And JJ McCarthy is, you're seeing him, but you're seeing him in like run packages. He has fewer attempts than, significantly fewer attempts than Kyle McCord does this year. He barely has more attempts than Jack Miller does, Ohio State's third stringer. He has not gotten the opportunity to throw the ball much. You're not developing him that much right now. He is, more dynamic in the run game than Cade McNamara is. He's more dynamic passing the ball. He's the only person, he threw, how many passes did he throw on Saturday? He threw 5 passes. McNamara threw 27. The only ball that got completed more than like 10 yards downfield was JJ McCarthy, because JJ McCarthy can throw the ball down the field. Like, I don't know. I don't know if the view here, the big trap they're going to spring against Michigan State or Penn State or Ohio State or whatever is, haha, now JJ McCarthy is throwing the ball and you fools won't know that in advance. Like, I mean, you can do that, but it feels like for his development, you got to be getting him out there, giving him more reps, giving him more, not just handoff reps or run the ball reps, but throwing the ball. And I think a lot of that is being sacrificed right now on, it's not quite trestle ball, but it's like win the surest way. And we'll worry about next week, but we have to win this game right now, because winning this game right now is the most important thing. And, there's a little bit of a moral hazard in giving a guy, essentially a 1-year contract and saying, coach for your job this year, because then he's going to coach for his job this year. And next year I'll have to wait for next year.
Yeah. Doing just well enough. Mm-hmm. Rather than trying to satisfy and satiate the fan base on what they really want. And McCarthy averaging 11.2 yards per attempt this season, and McNamara 7.6. It gives you a little bit of an idea of where their passes go. And I agree, Cade McNamara can only take them so far. That's not far enough for the fans. Jim Harbaugh sees it as far enough for him. And they have vastly different goals in this. And Jim Harbaugh can say their goal is to win a national championship. If he thinks Cade McNamara can get them there and his defense can get them there, that's the kind of delusion that maybe you don't need as your head coach, because who knows what else this guy thinks. But Cade McNamara is only going to, because he can only do so much. And you're going to see defenses just continue to creep up. And we've seen that. And the running game has struggled at times because of it. And there is no fear in what Cade McNamara does. Because He's not making anybody pay for it. They're just doing just enough, whatever it takes. Not whatever it takes. There's very little risk to it. Nobody is getting better. Like, this has been what Cade McNamara is. Like, he's not branching out. I don't think they try. It's like, well, it's not going to work. They threw a couple of back-to-back. He threw a couple of back-to-back deep balls, and they were both incomplete. And you can't get anything going. There's the momentum, the downfield momentum there. It's here one week and it's not there the next. Against Ohio State, McNamara, you got a fast defense that, as long as they're tackling, like this offense, it's dink and dunk, but it's not like a Texas Tech Mike Leach dink and dunk, where you got a bunch of quick playmakers. They're dinking and dunking to Eric All, a tight end, and they're throwing the ball 6 yards behind the line of scrimmage to these quick screens out wide and on these fake jet sweeps and stuff like that. And it lends itself to tackles in the backfield. And when your passing game lends itself to tackles in the backfield that aren't sacks, that's the wrong way. Just you're almost better off running the ball when you've got Blake Corum and Hassan Haskins. This passing game is going to hold them back. And if they don't get beaten before Ohio State, I will be surprised. I will also that's more of a testament to the opponent rather than Michigan's offense or defense at this point, because there has to be somebody that can take it. There has to be somebody that can contain this offense and then also take advantage of Michigan's issues defensively. And if it takes until Ohio State, then that's the Big Ten East is not the best division in football and college football, as we've been saying, but I don't know who is, because there's been a lot of flawed teams this year, and Michigan's schedule has been flawed. Ohio State's schedule has been flawed, if you want to talk about that as well. And nobody yet has been able to do what I think Ohio State is really going to do when these two teams get together.
Yeah, and I think going back to what I was saying earlier, to tie into, the passing game and what they're doing right now, like, they are just spamming the heck out of like those AJ Henning, like, pop passes, reverses, jet sweeps. I mean, and teams have obviously like figured that out now. Like, you don't see early in the year, he was hitting that and it was like, man, there is no one there. Everyone has watched the film. College football coaches pretty well known to watch film from like the previous 2 to 3 weeks of games that your opponent is playing. Like, everyone sees that now. So now that stuff's not working as much. I think Henning had one that maybe got a first down, and that was because there were 3 Northwestern guys there and just none of them got him to the ground. The stuff that's working is not going to continue working if you keep spamming the same stuff. And, with teams bringing more guys up towards the box because you're not worried about the deep pass anymore, that means the run game starts to suffer. And, you have backs who can make a guy miss. There was a lot of, there's a guy in the hole and Blake Corum has to make him miss, and then he turns it into something. Or Hassan Haskins, he had a real nice spin move at one point to get away from a guy who was kind of right there, right at the line of scrimmage. The runs are not coming super easy. You have to make a guy miss pretty much every time. And as you're playing teams that have better defenses than Northwestern, better defensive players than Northwestern, number one, those holes are not going to be quite as big. And number two, the guy who's in the hole waiting for you is probably going to be a better tackler than some of the guys that Northwestern was throwing out there. So you just, I came into this game thinking, rewatching the Northwestern game, I came into this game thinking I'm going to pick Michigan to beat Michigan State next week. And after, I was kind of like, I don't know that I am going to pick Michigan to beat Michigan State.
Well, and we both agreed that we're taking Michigan last week. And then as you said, you watch. I'm looking at AJ Henning, Roman Wilson. AJ Henning had 15 yards receiving. 24 of those were after the catch. To give you an idea of how far behind the line of scrimmage he's catching the ball. Roman Wilson, 2 catches for 4 yards, 12 yards after the catch. To give you an idea of how far behind the line he is getting the ball. Even Eric All, 34 yards receiving on 5 catches, but 24 of those yards are after the catch. So like he's catching the ball around the line of scrimmage and then plowing forward for some yards. I don't want to say there's no faith in Cade McNamara because he is the starting quarterback, but they're only going so far with that faith. Like they're not stepping out onto the invisible bridge like Indiana Jones. All right. They're not going to do that. But it makes you wonder, like, what is the concern? What is the fear with JJ McCarthy? And, I heard stories in fall camp that it just wasn't clicking for him in terms of the offense. Maybe that's why they only have him doing certain things. To me, the trajectory with JJ McCarthy is that he has what this offense needs physically to reach its best self. I don't know that maybe it's not there mentally yet because, he is a true freshman. You can only ask so much. I'm thinking back to Chad Henne in 2004 where they didn't know who they were going to start. And then that first game, it's surprise, it's Chad Henne, it's the true freshman. And then he takes off from there. And if Henne and the competitors that at that point you're all even, you go with the guy with the higher upside. I'm guessing they were just never even between McCarthy and McNamara in camp. And so now you try to get JJ McCarthy as ready as possible. It just doesn't feel like they're ever going to turn to him. So this is just what the offense you're seeing is now is what it is, except the defenses are going to get better. So the offense is by definition going to get worse. So enjoy dealing with that.
Right. It just, if you're not adding new weapons, I mean, you've got what you've got, and losing Ronnie Bell at the beginning of the season hurt a lot. And I wonder what this offense would look like if Ronnie Bell was there. Maybe the downfield passing is more, at least not necessarily 40 yards downfield, but 20 yards downfield. Like at least the intermediate passing game might be better. There's just nothing there. I mean, like it was 3rd and goal at the 3 or something, and they run this like orbit motion to Mike Sanderstill, which was like, well, gee, I wonder what's coming here. And they throw exactly what's coming there. And then he fumbles it. It's like, you're on the 3 and you don't trust your quarterback to throw into the end zone. Like, I mean, it's not great. And it doesn't seem like it's getting a whole lot better.
No. And I actually want to go back and look to see how many times, say inside the 10, is Cade McNamara actually throwing into the end zone, because when they're throwing inside the 10 now, it's like behind the line of scrimmage, near the line of scrimmage. I wonder how often he's actually just like going for it in the end zone. And then of course, how often is he successful? Tom, let's talk about the Michigan defense. Did as expected, gave up the 1 long 75-yard run to Evan Hall, the running back. And, that is what it is. It's one play. Take that one out. And Northwestern has, let me see here. So they finished with 233, take out the 175-yarder, and it's, Tom knows the math. It's not an impressive day by Northwestern as expected. And their quarterback situation has been bad every year that like Peyton Ramsey hasn't kind of helped, and Ramsey's now gone. Ryan Helinski is there. Beat out Hunter Johnson, even though Hunter Johnson started the season. And, if Hunter Johnson was their only option to start the season, you knew it wasn't going to go well from that point on. And they have not disappointed. There's no playmaking. There's no big plays. And yet Evan Hall, did that 175-yarder, and Michigan did not look good on that play. Defensively, this was not a test. Aiden Hutchinson again. And I am actually seeing more from the defensive line as a whole. It's good to see more, especially Mike Morris, seeing him more and more last couple of weeks, defensive tackle. And, there's some plays being made, but the stars continue to be Aiden Hutchinson and Dax Hill, who had a really good game. DJ Turner started at corner, had an incredible interception, a nice return, got flagged for pass interference. That was probably an offensive pass interference, and wasn't happy about that.
Just probably, huh?
Just probably. Just trying to keep it light for the Ohio State fans on this one. But, it's a defense that's, if there's no offensive threats, it's going to look really good because they can do a lot of different exotic stuff. And also then they don't have to. Sometimes there's 2 down linemen. Sometimes there's 4. And then, they've got their 3-5, their 3-4. They've got 3-3-5, and they can do all of these different things. It hasn't been tested yet. It hasn't been tested by a complete offense. And I've said that Michigan State is the second best offense in the Big Ten. But look what Indiana did to them and held them to 20 points. And so exactly how good is Michigan State offense? I think it depends on how well Peyton Thorne is clicking. I can't wait to see what they do, what Michigan's defense does against Kenneth Walker. There's going to be a ton of threats there for the Michigan defense. This will be their first real test. I don't know how legitimate of a test it is because I feel a little bit fooled by the Michigan State offense that has looked so good, then had an off week against Indiana, but maybe they get it back going because they do have some threats. And Peyton Thorne, the quarterback, has played well. Kenneth Walker, they've got some big play receivers. If they protect Peyton Thorne and just take some shots, I just want teams take some shots, see what happens, and I bet you'll get some positive results.
Yeah, I think they're going to have to take some shots to get the Michigan defenders out of the box to let that running game get going a little bit. And then once that running game does get going and they bring people back down, then you maybe have another opportunity to take a shot over the top. But yeah, I am super interested to see these Michigan corners going against, a potential downfield passing game because you basically haven't seen that this year. No one that Michigan has played has been able to challenge them in the spot that I think is the biggest remaining question mark on that defense, which is the corners. Like if you never get challenged, eventually Ohio State is on the schedule. Eventually Jahan Dotson is on the schedule with Penn State. Like it is going to happen eventually. But right now we still, we're 7 games into the regular season. We still don't know what they have at corner because we haven't really seen them challenged. So yeah, I'm intrigued to see how Michigan State attacks them because I think they're not like this dominating offense by any means, but they're a solid offense. How do they go about attacking them? Because they had the week off last week. What does that first scripted series of plays look like? If they get the ball, how do they go about attacking this Michigan defense? Because that's going to tell you where they feel like the vulnerabilities are. If they come out and are just throwing it right downfield immediately, I think that's going to tell me that there's not a lot of respect for those corners. Because they had a lot of success against those corners last year with a not particularly great quarterback and a not particularly great wide receiver. So if they can do that again, that could be a real long day. You might stop hearing the Mike McDonald puff pieces for a while.
And I do expect Mel Tucker and that entire team to start the game aggressive on offense, on defense, and either make plays on offense or try to force plays on defense. Michigan State has the number 2 offense in the Big Ten in terms of yards per play, averaging 7 yards per play on offense. It's behind Ohio State's 8.4. So there's a lot of ability there, and there's some production there. The passing game for Michigan State, they are second in the Big Ten in passing plays of 40-plus yards. They've got 9 this season. That's one more than Ohio State. They lead the Big Ten with 6 pass plays of 50 yards. So they will take some shots. They can do some yards after the catch as well. And so this is going to be a very big game for Aiden Hutchinson coming in. Like, how much can he disrupt that pass? And they're going to need stuff out of, Mozzie Smith and David Ojabo on the edge as well. Mentioned Mike Morris, and let's see how that rotation goes, how well they hold up throughout the entire game, how well the linebackers tackle. There's just a lot I'm looking forward to seeing with that one. And then the Michigan offense against the Michigan State defense, do they get aggressive? Does this become are you throwing some haymakers, or is, as you said, is it just going to be trestle ball? I guess now is it man ball, Harbaugh ball, where we're not going to get into that.
I like Harbaugh.
We're not going to get into it. We're not going to get into the fray. We're just, if they want to keep scoring touchdowns and throwing deep, that's fine. But we're going to do what we do. We're going to throw the ball behind the line of scrimmage. We're going to run it on first down. We're going to run it on second down. We're going to throw it 2 yards short of the sticks on third down and hope that our guys can power through and get that first down. And it might be a clash of styles, although Michigan fans will tell you it's always been a clash of styles. You've got the sophisticated Michigan people and the farmers over there at Michigan State. And so It's just interesting to me that the more sophisticated offense now belongs with the farmers, and the rustic style of offense belongs with the cultured city folk there in Ann Arbor.
I'm going to be real interested to see when JJ McCarthy comes into the game and what he's doing, because it feels like this is a game where if Michigan State's putting some points up and you're going to have to answer, is this a game where you put him in and you maybe let him take some shots downfield earlier in the game than you did against Northwestern? Because by the time he was in there throwing downfield, that game was functionally over. So he's been getting more garbage time stuff. And do they bring him out and give him a series in the second quarter, or do you shuffle him in the middle of a series in the second quarter, or even the first quarter? If you're behind and you're okay, we have to get some points. Is that something that they try and change up? Aiden Hutchinson, you mentioned him earlier. These are games where once the opponent passing attack gets better, he's going to be a more important piece of this game, getting, whether it's him or Jabo or someone getting pressure on that quarterback, getting the ball out of the quarterback's hands so the corners don't have to cover for so long. Watching him against Northwestern, he had that great bull rush against the Northwestern right tackle where he just drove him right back into the quarterback. I was watching that. I was like, wow, that was really impressive. I wonder how that would work against DeJuan Jones, because I suspect it would not work all that well against DeJuan Jones. Like, that's great. He has been a fantastic player. He's made his impact felt. But now that you're going to get into the games where it's even more important for him to get pressure or a Jabo to get pressure, I don't think that pressure is going to come quite as easily. And I think that's going to be, if you're relying on that to be a big part of your pass defense, I don't know if that's going to work out super well.
Michigan State has given up 7 sacks in 4 Big Ten games, towards the top of that statistical category in the Big Ten. Looking forward to it. There's going to be a lot to talk about after that game as well. Getting back to this Michigan Northwestern game, I don't know that we learned all that much or anything about Michigan. Their special teams continue to do well. They had a blocked punt in this one. I think Jake Moody missed a field goal though, but they do win the field position battle more often than not, it feels like, because they take it seriously, and they have to. With this offense, you don't want to be going 75 yards every time you get the ball. You'd rather be going 50. And it's funny that Ohio State, who doesn't mind going 75 yards, has been going 50 a lot this season, which is one of the reasons they had 19 consecutive drives with CJ Stroud at the helm that led to touchdowns, taking away some kneel downs at the end of a half, end of games. And as I say, 19 consecutive drives that ended in touchdowns. I'm expecting some Michigan fans to have their heads explode just thinking about that. And yes, that will be the offense coming to Ann Arbor the end of November. And I'm going to need to see more from Michigan's defense to think that there is anything that will, and Michigan's offense to think that at this point, 17, 21 points, it seems like almost conservative in terms of what the difference of this game is going to be. And yet, I don't even know what the line is going to be, but I think we were both surprised when we started seeing some lines from the Penn State game where Ohio State was only favored like by 11.5 or 13. So who knows? The lines that open, if Michigan continues to win, Ohio State continues to win, it may only be like Ohio State by 6 or 7. In that case, I might have to drive to Las Vegas or something.
It's Wheeling Island, I think, is closer than Las Vegas.
All right, that's fine.
I was just pulling up some of the stats on, the Ohio State game versus Indiana versus the Northwestern game against Michigan. Yards per drive, Ohio State had a bunch of short field position, and Ohio State's yards per drive was still 11 higher than Michigan's. Michigan was 48 yards per drive. Ohio State 59. Available yards, the percentage of available yards, Ohio State was 85%. Michigan was 72%. And just so you know what available yards are, it is if you start on the 20, your own 20, you have 80 yards available to you. You could, that is the most number of yards you could gain in that drive to get a touchdown. So if you go 40 yards and then you punt or you kick a field goal or whatever it is, then you have gained 50% of the yards available to you. Ohio State, 85% of available yards. Michigan, 72. Like Michigan looked reasonably good on offense and had a bunch of possessions that died in the red zone. They kicked a field goal at one point from the 3, and they had a fumble at the 3. So they were driving the ball. And it was like, wow, they moved the ball pretty consistently and were substantially less than Ohio State. So yeah, I think this, just everything about this, I mean, go back to when Ohio State looked terrible. We were saying, see if you can find an early line on that game while Michigan is, it's within a field goal, or Michigan is, potentially even favored. Like, get a futures bet down on that now, because this is not going to hold. And you're, I think, now seeing, like, yes, in fact, this is not going to hold. Did you get poll results on your poll of Michigan fans?
Oh boy, did I.
This is something we talked about in the car on the way home. Like, what would Michigan fans say? What's the most likely outcome for that game? Ohio State by 21 plus, or any other result? And you even toned it down to 14 plus.
Yeah, and I know last night it was about 84% from. And granted, I asked only Michigan fans to vote in this poll, so I know it was only Michigan fans. But 84% expecting the 14 plus points. Now, I will eventually revise that, maybe after this week or maybe before, and get your desired 21 plus results. I just thought that let's make it a little bit closer, but no, I don't know what that. I wonder how much different the 21 plus would be. Instead of 84, is it 72% or something like that? Because it's clear that Michigan fans that responded to the poll aren't that confident right now that anything is going to be different. And it goes back to what we were saying about Jim Harbaugh. Like, that game maybe is not the most important thing to him. It's getting those 10 wins that are, because how do you fire a guy with 10 wins? We know guys with 9 wins can be fired. It happens. It's happened at Ohio State. It's happened at Nebraska. It's happened at Michigan, although they let Lloyd Carr retire. But you get that 10th win, and it's like, boom, secure. I'm safe.
Well, and what is the mindset of the Michigan fan base if they come out of this year 10-2, 10 wins, hooray, a 10-win season? Who'd you lose to? Well, Michigan State for the second consecutive year, and Ohio State by 4 touchdowns at home. Like, what's the mindset at that point? Like, you're maybe in a New Year's 6 game, maybe, or at least the Citrus Bowl. And what is the feeling coming out of that? Is that a successful season? Is that an okay season? Are you thrilled that Jim Harbaugh is coming back? Or are you, is this another, like, well, even the good things are not that good. Like, I can't imagine that there would be all that much excitement around that, but I also don't know how you fire him off a 10-win season.
Let me throw this out at you, Tom. Those 10 wins, those 10 games, you would consider Michigan, they could consider themselves the champions of those games, right? Because they won them, so they are the champions. Those 10 games would be big for them. They could call those 10 their Big 10. And then the shirt could say Big 10 champions, because they were the champions of those Big 10 games. So I think you win 10 games. How do you fire somebody whose school is able to print shirts to say Big 10 champions? You can't.
You're undefeated in cross-division games. You beat Washington. I mean, dare I say champions of the West?
I don't know how you can't say that. That's interesting. Some really good merchandising opportunities for Michigan for the first time since 1997.
2004, sir. Co-Big Ten champions.
Yeah, okay. You're right. Taking us back to Chad Henne and your freshman quarterback being the guy that can actually lead you somewhere. But so that should do it. Tom, you got anything else that you wanted to touch on about the Michigan Wolverines?
No, just very, very excited to watch this game this weekend. That should be. Is that a noon kickoff? Is that official? It is. Yeah. Yes, that's noon. Okay, so yes, we'll get to watch that whole game before we head to the stadium. So yes, I am really, really excited to watch that game because I think we're going to learn a lot about both of those teams, which then is going to tell us probably a lot about the final month or so of Ohio State season too.
Yep, absolutely going to be a fun weekend. So we look forward to it, and we will cover it all here at the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. and talk to you about Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan State, all throughout the week. So I want to thank you all for tuning in as always. If you're watching on YouTube, just so you know, this is the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. If you'd rather listen to an audio version of this, you can check out your podcast platform of choice. Just type in Buckeye Weekly and you'll find us there. Go ahead and subscribe there as well. If you're watching on YouTube, hey, welcome to YouTube. You can find us at youtube.com/Buckeye Scoop at all times. So go ahead and subscribe there and you'll be notified anytime we drop a video or anybody drops a video. So I want to thank you all for tuning in, and we will talk to you guys later.